Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds productive discussions with the Sultan of Brunei. The leaders welcome elevation of bilateral ties to enhanced partnership. Both sides sign a number of agreements. A major government shake-up in Ukraine. 5 ministers, including the in-charge of weapons production, resign. Poland scrambles aircraft for the third time in 8 days to secure its airspace after Russia's air attack on Ukraine. The U.S. files terrorism charges against 6 Hamas leaders, including its chief Yahya Sinwar, accuses them of orchestrating the 7th October attacks in Israel. And in sport, India bags its highest ever tally of 20 medals at the Paris Paralympics. The Sultan of Brunei, Haji Hassanal Bolkiah, and his close family members welcomed India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Istana Nurul Iman on Wednesday. The Istana Nurul Iman is the official residence of the Sultan of Brunei. Both sides held productive discussions during the delegation-level talks, where they welcomed the elevation of bilateral ties to enhanced partnership. The Prime Minister said the talks were wide-ranging and included ways to further cement the bilateral ties between the two nations. The two leaders took stock of bilateral relations, including in areas of defense, trade and investment, energy, space technology, health and pharmaceuticals, capacity building, culture and people-to-people ties. They also exchanged views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. India and Brunei also signed and exchanged memoranda of understanding.
Your Majesty, आपके भावपूर्ण शब्द, गर्मजोशी भरे स्वागत और आतिथ्य सत्कार के लिए मैं आपको और पूरे शाही परिवार का हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। सबसे पहले मैं आपको और ब्रुनेई के लोगों को आजादी की 40वीं वर्षगांठ पर 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों की तरफ से हार्दिक बधाई देता हूं। योर मैजेस्टी, हमारे सदियों पुराने सांस्कृतिक संबंध है। हमारी मित्रता का आधार हमारी यह महान सांस्कृतिक परंपरा है। आपके नेतृत्व में हमारे संबंध दिनों दिन प्रगाढ़ होते रहे हैं। 2018 में हमारे गणतंत्र दिवस पर मुख्य अतिथि के रूप में आपकी भारत यात्रा की स्मृतियां आज भी भारत के लोग बहुत गौरव के साथ याद करते हैं। योर मैजेस्टी, मुझे अत्यंत खुशी है कि मुझे अपने तीसरे कार्यकाल की शुरुआत में ही ब्रुनेई की यात्रा करने का और आपसे भविष्य के विषय में चर्चा करने का सौभाग्य मिला है। यह भी सुखद संयोग है कि इस वर्ष हम द्विपक्षीय साझेदारी की 40वीं वर्षगांठ मना रहे हैं। भारत की एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी और इंडो पैसिफिक विजन में ब्रुनेई का महत्वपूर्ण साझेदार होना यह हमारे लिए उज्जवल भविष्य की गारंटी है। हम एक दूसरे की भावनाओं का सम्मान करते हैं। मुझे विश्वास है कि मेरी इस यात्रा से और हमारी चर्चाओं से आने वाले समय के लिए हमारे संबंधों को स्ट्रैटेजिक दिशा मिलेगी। एक बार फिर इस अवसर पर मैं आपका हृदय से बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं।
The Sultan of Brunei hosted a banquet lunch for the Prime Minister. Brunei Darussalam is an important partner in India's Act East policy and its vision of the Indo-Pacific. And now let's take a look at India-Brunei relations. It's the first ever bilateral visit to Brunei by an Indian Prime Minister. India and Brunei are celebrating 40 years of their diplomatic ties. The India-Brunei relationship is based on strong traditional and cultural linkages. Brunei is an important partner in India's Act East policy and its vision of the Indo-Pacific. The visit aims to further strengthen cooperation in all sectors. It will boost space technology, health, capacity building, culture and people-to-people exchanges. The visit explores avenues for cooperation in newer sectors, and the bilateral trade was $286.2 million in 23-24. And India imports crude oil worth $500 to $600 million from Brunei in a year. The Brunei media prominently cover the Indian Prime Minister's visit. A photograph of the Crown Prince receiving the Prime Minister at the Brunei International Airport was flashed on the front page of the Borneo Bulletin newspaper. It also covered the Prime Minister's visit to the Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque and shows him sitting next to the Minister of Religious Affairs and Health Minister of Brunei Darussalam and being welcomed by members of the Indian community at the mosque. Right, so there you can see the photographs displayed prominently in the Borneo Bulletin newspaper published from Brunei of the Crown Prince receiving the Prime Minister at the airport and thereafter his visit to the mosque in Brunei Darussalam, where he met with the Indian community members as well. All right, joining me from Bandar Seri Begawan is my colleague Munmun Bhattacharya. Munmun, walk our viewers through the outcomes of those delegation-level talks between the two leaders.
Yes, Ramesh, we are yet to get the details of the MOUs that were signed in exchange. We are waiting for the joint statement, so the fine print is yet to come out. But what I would say is that there was a focus on giving a strategic direction to this relationship, because when you heard the Prime Minister during the delegation level talks, he said that he's looking forward to taking ties in the direction of a strategic dimension, because we know that the ties are not officially a strategic partnership, though we are marking 40th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic ties. In 1984, Brunei Darussalam got independence. It was a British commissionerate since 1888. And that was the year when India and Brunei Darussalam established diplomatic ties as well. So 2024 is a landmark year in terms of diplomatic ties between both the sides, and Prime Minister referred to that in his delegation level talks. And besides that, he did say that when he was here in 2018 as the chief guest, then of course that was a special year, and that was also a special moment for all Indians. He said when the Sultan of Brunei, in fact, was one of the chief guests at the Republic Day Parade on 26 January 2018. And he was, of course, among those heads of state and government from ASEAN countries. So all in all, I would say that from the information that we have so far, the focus is on defense relations, on space relations, on trade ties and commercial ties and people-to-people exchanges, on health and pharmaceutical sectors, on energy security, on cultural and investment ties and commercial linkages. So these are the focus areas. Besides, of course, there's focus on the Act East policy, as well as the Prime Minister mentioned, the Indo-Pacific vision. So these are really the buzzwords, so to say, Indo-Pacific, the
और
Act East
पूरे
policy,
शाही
and giving
परिवार का
ties to strategic
मैं
direction.
हृदय से बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। भारतीय प्रधानमंत्री की ब्रुनेई की ये पहली द्विपक्षीय यात्रा है, लेकिन यहां मिले अपनेपन ने मुझे दोनों देशों के सदियों पुराने संबंधों का एहसास हर पल हम अनुभव कर रहे हैं। योर मैजेस्टी, इस साल ब्रुनेई की आजादी की 40वीं वर्षगांठ है। आपके नेतृत्व में ब्रुनेई ने परंपरा और निरंतरता के लिए एक महत्वपूर्ण संगम के साथ प्रगति की है। ब्रुनेई के लिए आपका वावासन 2035 विजन सराहनीय है। 140 करोड़ भारतीयों की ओर से मैं आपको और ब्रुनेई के लोगों को बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं देता हूं। साथियों, भारत और ब्रुनेई के बीच गहरे ऐतिहासिक और सांस्कृतिक संबंध है। इस साल हम अपने राजनीतिक संबंधों की 40वीं सालगिरह मना रहे हैं। इस अवसर पर हमने निर्णय लिया है कि अपने संबंधों को एनहांस पार्टनरशिप का दर्जा देंगे। हमारी साझेदारी को स्ट्रैटेजिक दिशा देने के लिए हमने सभी पहलुओं पर व्यापक चर्चा की। हम आर्थिक, वैज्ञानिक और रणनीतिक क्षेत्रों में अपने सहयोग को मजबूत करने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है। हमने कृषि, उद्योग, फार्मा और स्वास्थ्य के साथ साथ फिनटेक और साइबर सिक्योरिटी में आपसी सहयोग पर बल देने का निर्णय लिया है। ऊर्जा क्षेत्र में हमने एलएनजी में लॉन्ग टर्म सहयोग की संभावनाओं पर चर्चा की। रक्षा क्षेत्र में सहयोग को बढ़ाने के लिए हमने रक्षा उद्योग, प्रशिक्षण और क्षमता निर्माण की संभावनाओं पर सकारात्मक विचार किए। अंतरिक्ष के क्षेत्र में अपने सहयोग को सुदृढ़ करने के लिए हमने सैटेलाइट डेवलपमेंट, रिमोट सेंसिंग और ट्रेनिंग पर सहमति बनाई है। दोनों देशों के बीच कनेक्टिविटी के लिए जल्द ही डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट्स शुरू की जाएगी। साथियों, हमारे पीपल टू पीपल संबंध हमारी साझेदारी की नींव है। मुझे खुशी है कि भारतीय समुदाय ब्रुनेई की अर्थव्यवस्था और समाज में सकारात्मक योगदान दे रहा है। कल भारतीय राजदूतावास के लोकार्पण से भारतीय समुदाय को एक स्थायी एड्रेस मिला है। भारतीय समुदाय के कल्याण और हितों की देखरेख के लिए हम मैजेस्टी और उनकी सरकार के आभारी हैं। साथियों, भारत की एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी और इंडो पैसिफिक विजन में ब्रुनेई का महत्वपूर्ण साझेदार रहा है। भारत हमेशा आसियान सेंट्रलिटी को प्राथमिकता देता आया है और आगे भी देता रहेगा। हम अनक्लोज जैसे अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कानूनों के तहत फ्रीडम ऑफ नेविगेशन और ओवरफ्लाइट्स का समर्थन करते हैं। हम सहमत हैं कि इस क्षेत्र में कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट पर सहमति बने। हम विस्तारवाद नहीं, विकासवाद की नीति का समर्थन करते हैं। योर मैजेस्टी, भारत के साथ संबंधों के प्रति आपकी प्रतिबद्धता के लिए हम आपके आभारी हैं। आज हमारे ऐतिहासिक संबंधों में एक नया अध्याय जुड़ रहा है। एक बार फिर मुझे दिए गए सम्मान के लिए मैं आपका बहुत बहुत आभारी हूं। मैं आपके शाही परिवार के सभी सदस्यों और ब्रुनेई के लोगों के अच्छे स्वास्थ्य और खुशहाली की कामना करता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
All right, there you heard India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's statement towards the end of his talks with the Sultan of Brunei, where he announced that both sides have decided to elevate their ties to the level of an enhanced partnership. He spoke about a number of agreements being signed towards the end of those talks as well. He spoke about connectivity in terms of direct flights between Bandar Seri Begawan and India. He spoke about how India wants to enhance cooperation in terms of energy security, importing oil and LNG in particular from Brunei. He spoke about space cooperation. He spoke about defense exchanges and also about the larger context of the Indo-Pacific. He specifically mentioned India's commitment to freedom of navigation in the South China Sea and the waters around it. He spoke about a code of conduct in the region and how India does not support or stands against expansionism without referring to any particular country in question. Right, let me go back to my colleague Munmun Bhattacharya, who is standing by in Bandar Seri Begawan for more on the developing story as far as India and Brunei are concerned. Munmun, there we heard the Prime Minister's statement towards the end of his talks with the Sultan. Give us, put it into context for our viewers, Munmun, if you will, about India-Brunei ties in terms of having spent the last few days in the capital city there. How would you describe the relationship as it stands now in terms of the diaspora connect, people-to-people ties, trade, investment and other facets of bilateral cooperation?
Yes, Ramesh, I would say that emerging from the press statement, there are a few important points. One, of course, like you said, ties have been elevated to enhanced partnership level. The future would be of strategic direction, is what Prime Minister Narendra Modi said. And
Apologies for that disruption in the link with Munmun Bhattacharya in Bandar Seri Begawan. We'll try to reconnect with Munmun in just a bit. But in the meantime, we are getting you the visuals again of the two leaders before they began their delegation level talks in Bandar Seri Begawan, the capital of Brunei. The Prime Minister speaking about how both sides have agreed to elevate their ties to the level of an enhanced partnership. And in the meantime, let me get you visuals of the Prime Minister's departure from Brunei on his onwards journey to Singapore towards the end of his two-day visit to Brunei, the first bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Brunei in 4 decades, where you see the Prime Minister leaving Bandar Seri Begawan for Singapore on the second leg of his visit to Southeast Asia. If you're just joining us, we are getting you the continuous coverage of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Brunei. And we're getting you these latest visuals of the Prime Minister emplaning from Bandar Seri Begawan, the capital of Brunei, for Singapore, which would be the second and last leg of his two-nation tour of Southeast Asia. Mr. Modi landed in Brunei on Tuesday. He held delegation-level talks with the Sultan a few hours ago. A number of agreements were signed towards the end of those talks, and in his press statement, the Prime Minister announcing that both sides have decided to enhance their bilateral ties to an enhanced partnership. He spoke about how both sides discussed connectivity in terms of direct flights, He spoke about how India wants to cooperate more in terms of LNG imports from Brunei. Defense was another area of cooperation, space technology, trade and investment, and last but not the least, regional security in the wider Indo-Pacific region, where the Prime Minister said that India stands for and remains committed to freedom of navigation. He spoke about how a code of conduct in the waters of the Indo-Pacific is needed, and how India supports this idea as well, and how India stands against expansionism without naming any country in particular. So there we're getting the latest visuals to you from the capital of Brunei, Bandar Seri Begawan, where the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, is emplaning for Singapore on what will be the second and last leg of his two-nation tour of Southeast Asia. Right, so while we are staying on these visuals, let me quickly recap for you the big idea or the big picture in terms of India-Brunei relations. As I mentioned, it's the first ever bilateral visit to Brunei by an Indian Prime Minister. India and Brunei are celebrating 40 years of their diplomatic ties. Now, the India-Brunei relationship is based on strong traditional and cultural linkages. Brunei, as you might know, is an important partner of India's Act East policy and its vision of the Indo-Pacific. Now, the visit aimed to further strengthen cooperation in all sectors such as space technology, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, capacity building, defense, culture, trade and investment, and people-to-people ties. The visit also explored avenues for further cooperation in newer areas as well. And just to recap again, insofar as bilateral trade is concerned, the bilateral trade stood at $286.2 million in 2023 and 2024. And India imports crude oil worth $500 to $600 million per year from Brunei. So this, viewers, was, as I mentioned, the first ever bilateral visit to Brunei by an Indian Prime Minister since the establishment of diplomatic ties 40 years ago. And the big news we are tracking here on DD India News Hour is that India and Brunei have agreed to elevate their ties to the level of an enhanced partnership. Right, see the visuals on your screen, that of the Indian Prime Minister leaving Bandar Seri Begawan, the capital of Brunei, for Singapore on what will be the second and last leg of his two-nation tour of Southeast Asia. All right, we have our colleague Munmun Bhattacharya on the phone line from Brunei. Munmun, do finish making a point before the line got disrupted, and also talk our viewers through the big outcomes or takeaways from the two-day visit to Brunei by India's Prime Minister.
Yes, I would say that the outcomes, Ramesh, are reflected in Prime Minister's statement at the Royal Palace. It gives us a sense of where the relationship stands now and what really is in store in this relationship, because he did speak about how both sides have decided to take forward their ties in fintech and cybersecurity, that India has shown interest as far as sealing long-term natural gas contracts is concerned. And though he didn't say what the Bruneian side has to say on this, but this is a potential area of cooperation. If it's not an outcome of this visit, India has definitely shown its intent when it comes to that. And the overarching outcome is, of course, this, that ties have now been enhanced at partnership level, and India would want to give the ties a strategic direction. He did mention Act East policy, Indo-Pacific vision. He spoke of how India would want to abide by UNCLOS, and that India believes in abiding by UNCLOS and freedom of navigation and overflight. He also said that India is for having a code of conduct for parties in the South China Sea, and that it is in favor of a policy that is based on development and not a policy that is based on expansionism. So the neighborhood must be listening very closely. Brunei Darussalam, we know, is at the center of the Indo-Pacific Circle. It is surrounded by Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Philippines, and Singapore. So it's very strategically located. It is a tiny state located on the northern coast of the island of Borneo along the South China Sea. It is a silent claimant to its exclusive economic zone borders in the South China Sea. It doesn't run into conflict with China. It doesn't assert its claims as aggressively as the Philippines would do, where we see visuals of ramming of vessels between both the sides. So it's been a very quiet or silent claimant of its maritime claims, and it hedges between the United States and China at the same time. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi making it loud and clear that as far as the whole of Indo-Pacific region is concerned, India's policy is in favor of freedom of navigation and overflight. And this would, of course, mean that there are things to ponder for Brunei Darussalam, because Brunei, as I've been saying, has been silent in its approach towards China. But there are other countries that are asserting its claims, and we know that the ASEAN as well as China, they have been in talks for many, many years now on a code of conduct for the parties in the South China Sea, where China has been dragging its feet. Brunei is also an ASEAN member state. It is also a part of those negotiations. It's an interesting stakeholder. So a very important strategic point really made by India, and this is very much in continuation of India's approach towards the ASEAN region and, of course, towards Southeast Asian region and Indo-Pacific as a whole. And, of course, the centrality of ASEAN remains an important factor for India, and Prime Minister did mention that for this region, the Southeast Asian region. Having said that, the Prime Minister also spoke of how both sides decided to take forward ties in terms of defense trade and training. So will there be defense exports by India? Will there be Make in India defense equipment that India would be exporting to Brunei Darussalam? What shape would that take? Again, the fine print in the joint statement would make that clear. As far as space sector is concerned, he spoke of the focus now going forward being on satellite development, on remote sensing as well as training. So training has been a part of our space cooperation for some time now, because India has been training the space scientists of Brunei Darussalam. So maybe that is being taken forward. But satellite development would be a new area of cooperation. Again, we'll have to wait for the fine print to know how this is likely to move forward. The Prime Minister spoke of people-to-people ties and spoke of the contribution that the Indian diaspora has been making to the economy of Brunei, particularly Indian professionals who are highly respected here. They are doctors, engineers, IT professionals, teachers, etc. And the Prime Minister also said that soon direct flights will start between the two countries. Like I've been saying, from the 5th of November, a direct flight will begin between Bandar Seri Begawan and Chennai. That will be thrice a week. There was a direct flight earlier between Brunei Darussalam as well as Kolkata that was stopped after 9/11. There is no direct flight connectivity. So I would say that a very comprehensive discussion on a whole lot of sectors really between India and Brunei Darussalam, important from the bilateral and regional perspective.
All right. On that note, Munmun, thank you very much for that comprehensive update of India-Brunei ties in the light of the just concluded visit to that country by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. All right, time for a very short break on this broadcast, but more news coming up on the other side. Stay tuned. You're watching DD India News Hour and Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds productive discussions with the Sultan of Brunei. The leaders welcome elevation of bilateral ties to enhanced partnership. Both sides sign a number of agreements. A major government shake-up in Ukraine. 5 ministers, including the in charge of weapons production, resign. Poland scrambles aircraft for the third time in 8 days to secure its airspace after Russia's air attack on Ukraine. The US files terrorism charges against 6 Hamas leaders, including its chief Yahya Sinwar, accuses them of orchestrating the 7th October attacks in Israel. And in sport, India bags its highest ever tally of 20 medals at the Paris Paralympics. So after concluding his successful visit to Brunei, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is now en route to Singapore. The ASEAN nation has been a traditional ally of India and its highest source of foreign direct investment. The visit by the Prime Minister is likely to strengthen the economic and cultural ties between the two countries. Akshay Dongre has more.
After his first ever state visit to Brunei, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Singapore on the 4th of September after a gap of 6 years. This is Prime Minister Modi's 5th visit to Singapore after he assumed office and has enthused the Indian diaspora across the East Asian country.
Our foreign policies are improved. That's what I can see, I can feel. People are, other people talking about our country. So I think a lot of positive things are happening. And I'm excited as PM is coming here. And surely all Indians will celebrate and will welcome him.
The visit to Singapore is significant as this is PM Modi's first visit after assuming a third historic term, along with Lawrence Wong assuming the charge of Prime Minister of Singapore this year in the month of May. The bilateral visit is likely to deepen relations between the two nations.
It's a very important and a historic visit. It's Prime Minister's 5th visit, as you rightly mentioned. Now, a visit very early on in his third term is really, really historic because Prime Minister Lawrence Wong also has taken office in May, and a meeting between two prime ministers very early on in their respective tenures will set the course for our bilateral relationship in the next decade or so.
India and Singapore have been traditional allies with shared heritage, history and cultural ties, along with deep economic relations. The impetus given by the Modi government has significantly improved the bond between the two nations. Besides cultural ties, the visit by Prime Minister Modi will focus on futuristic cooperation in areas including digitalization, sustainability, skills, health, connectivity and advanced manufacturing. These include semiconductors and aviation technology. Taken all together, these are likely to give a boost to economic cooperation between the two nations.
Certainly, Singapore having a small percentage of Indian and Indian origin people, they make culturally much more share of the noise of Singapore because there's so much of activity that happens which draws a lot of people. And we talk about culture, it's not only classical arts, it is non-classical arts, even the Bollywood, even yoga, even Indian Ayurveda, and all forms of Indian culture. Food is a very big part of it.
Indian community is one of the largest and perhaps most important communities of Singapore that has left a permanent mark on the culture of the country. As you can see everywhere, there will always be something that reminds you of India, of Indian heritage that you will find in the country. And while there has always been close cultural and historic ties between the two countries, now amid the changing geopolitical scenario, there is an increasing closer strategic relation between the two countries as well. And to nurture and to strengthen this relationship, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India is visiting Singapore, where the two countries will aim at significantly enhancing the close ties that the two countries share at this moment. With camera person SP Dubey in Singapore, Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And Akshay Dongre also speaks to the co-founder and chairperson of Global Schools Foundation, Atul Temurnikar, about education ties between Singapore and India. Take a listen.
India and Singapore are both major trade partners in several fields. Both the countries are collaborating in different aspects of business and trade, and education is turning up to be one of the most important sectors as far as the collaboration between the two countries are concerned. We are right now at Global Schools Foundation, and we have with us the co-founder and chairperson of the Global School Foundation, Mr. Atul Temurnikar. Sir, thank you so much for speaking with us. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting Singapore. Both the countries are major trade partners as well, and education, as I just said, that it's emerging to be one of the most important sector of collaboration. So how are you seeing the developments that are taking place?
Singapore and India have had a very, very good cultural ties all through the last 5-7 decades. We've also seen the CICA agreements coming in place, and the effects of that in terms of positive outcomes in FDI has been noticed. I think this is probably the best time for accelerating the investments on both sides. Singapore has been making investments in technology side, in technology parks, in investing in large financial institutions and various other sectors. And India has been likewise making investments into Singapore and also through Singapore into various gateways into Asia as well as Europe. One is the Make in India program is likely going to be seeing a major attraction from foreign investors. And I think Prime Minister Modi is coming here and interacting with several industry CEOs who are potential investors into India will give them a lot of comfort, because when it comes from the leadership, it's going to be bringing in a lot of comfort in terms of, okay, there's somebody we are going to look towards.
Sir, as far as the collaboration between the two countries are concerned, what areas do you see as potential to expect a boost as far as the growing ties between the two countries are concerned?
Sure. I think I would say human skills is one very, very big sector. Singapore has the ecosystem in several industries, and Singapore needs great manpower to access to it, not necessarily in Singapore, but access to the manpower in India. And I think India has that. India has been able to achieve great achievements in the area of skills development. NSDA has been doing very, very good progress in that area.
And my last question would be about the arrival of the Prime Minister that's going to take place. What do you see around Singapore as far as the excitement is concerned, especially among the Indian diaspora?
Looking at the the sentiments that we have between the two countries, between G to G, between people to people, this visit is going to be very, very enormously seen by everyone, both in the importance of the trade side of it, but also in the people-to-people relations.
Thank you so much, sir. So that was the co-founder and chairperson of the Global Schools Foundation. And clearly, Singapore has the technology, India has the manpower and skilled labor as well. People who can, in fact, come together, both the countries can come together and realize the dream of even closer ties and better relation between the two countries. With camera person SP Dubey, I'm Akshay Dongre, Lead India.
The Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement System, through its investment teams, has significant investments in Asia. Investors and business officials have gathered in Singapore ahead of the Indian Prime Minister's visit. Akshay Dongre speaks to Ashish Goyal, Executive Vice President of the Canadian Public Pension Fund.
Ahead of the arrival of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Singapore, there is not only an excitement among the Indian diaspora, but also among the investors and business officials here that are working in Singapore. In fact, we are right now at the office of OMERS, a large pension fund based out of Canada, and we have the Executive Vice President of OMERS, Mr. Ashish Goyal, here with us. Sir, we are seeing a lot of excitement as far as Prime Minister's arrival is concerned. So how is the business community looking at it?
I think there's a lot of excitement over the last many years now. There's been a very good communication between the two sides, government to government, business leaders to business leaders. So the Indian diaspora here is obviously large. There are very meaningful relationships, positive relationship between the two countries. And I think there's a lot of excitement around what comes next.
Sir, as far as India and Singapore are concerned, they are huge trade partners. In fact, Singapore is the largest source of foreign direct investment into India as far as last year is concerned. So where do you see the potential lies right now? In what fields can India and Singapore further collaborate?
So Singapore obviously in the last 40-50 years has gone from third world to first, and there are a number of industries where Singapore is a world leader. A few of them I think have been discussed in the recent meetings. One is advanced manufacturing. So for a number of historical reasons, Singapore has a fairly large and well-developed semiconductor manufacturing setup. So there are a lot of skills that can be transported to India. There are a lot of opportunities for collaboration. Singapore is limited by just its sheer size and the size of its labor force. So, having a partnership in India which gives Singapore a sort of a large hinterland to do bigger things at a bigger scale in partnership with Indian companies, there are opportunities clearly there, and I think India should take full advantage of that, absorb those skills and so on.
What is the outlook that has changed, and what has been the impact of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's policies, pro-trade policies, as far as India's outlook is concerned?
I think what has been quite remarkable is the policy stability and direction that we have seen in the last 10 years. There is a clarity of purpose, and policy is designed in line with that purpose, and it's been stable. And as long as we have that stability, that predictability, global capital is going to feel more comfortable about coming to India. So Make in India will be an important part of that. We need to see more of the same policy continuity. There are a number of areas that this government has been working on. As we see those measures come through, I think international investors are going to continue to feel more comfortable investing in India.
That was Mr. Ashish Goel, the Executive Vice President of Commerce. And as far as the business leaders are concerned, clearly you can see that there is a very good outlook as far as India's performance in the past 10 years is concerned, especially for the businesses across the world. With camera person SP Dubey, I'm Akshay Dongre, Need India.
All right, shifting focus to some other world news now. Poland scrambled its aircraft on Wednesday for the third time in 8 days to ensure the safety of its airspace after Russia launched airstrikes on Ukraine. The Russian attack was launched on Ukraine's capital Kyiv and a drone attack on the western city of Lviv, which is not far from the border with Poland. Several blasts were heard on the outskirts of Kyiv in what sounded like air defense systems in operation. The whole of Ukraine was under air raid alert. Ukraine's Air Force said air defense units were engaged in repelling the attacks. At least 51 people were killed and 271 injured in a Russian strike in Ukraine's central town of Poltava. The Ukrainian city was hit by 2 ballistic missiles on Tuesday, deemed to be the conflict's deadliest single attack this year. Poltava's governor said 1 military personnel was killed in the attack, while 15 people were still feared trapped under the debris. Fighting has intensified over the past month, with Russian forces advancing in eastern Ukraine, while Kyiv's troops have mounted their first large-scale cross-border assault into Russia. Moscow has vowed to retaliate for the incursion into the Kursk region. At a critical juncture in the conflict with Russia, Ukraine has witnessed a major government shake-up, being dubbed as part of a restructuring of the government. High-profile ministers that resigned include the country's arms chief, a deputy chief of staff, and deputy prime minister. The resignations, which leave over a third of the cabinet vacant, will be considered by the parliament at one of the next plenary sessions. Meanwhile, President Zelensky says the changes were being undertaken to ensure Ukraine had the strengthened government it needed.
Autumn will be extremely important for Ukraine. Our state institutions must be organized in a way that ensures Ukraine achieves all the results we need, all of us. To this end, we must strengthen certain areas within the government, and the personal decisions have been prepared. There will also be changes in the office. I also anticipate a different emphasis on certain areas of our foreign and domestic policy.
In other news, the U.S. announced criminal charges on the Hamas on Tuesday. The U.S. announced the charges against Hamas's top leaders for their roles in planning, supporting and perpetrating the 7th October attacks in Israel that killed 1,200 people, including more than 40 U.S. citizens. The complaint names 6 defendants, 3 of whom are deceased. The living defendants are Yahya Sinwar, who is believed to be in hiding in Gaza, Khalid Mishal, who is based in Doha and heads the group's diaspora office, and Ali Baraka, a senior Hamas official based in Lebanon. Whereas the deceased defendants are former Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in July in Iran, Military Wing Chief Muhammad Deif, who Israel says it killed in a July airstrike, and Marwan Issa, a deputy military commander who Israel says it had killed in March. U.S. prosecutors brought charges against the 6 men in February. They had kept the complaint under seal, but decided to go public with the charges after Haniye's death. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a telephonic conversation with the country's medal winners at the Paris Paralympics. US film director Tim Burton receives a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and a zero-waste workshop in Taipei recycles plastic into trendy sunglasses.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. And now to news from the world of sport. First up, updates from the Paris Paralympics. The Indian para contingent displayed a phenomenal performance on day 6 at the Paris Paralympics, taking India to its best ever medal haul of 20, with 4 days still remaining to the Games. Indian para sprinter Deepti Jeevanji bagged the 16th medal for India on day 6 as she won the bronze medal in the women's 400-meter T20 final. The para athlete finished the race in 55.82 seconds. Ajit Singh bagged silver medal with a personal best throw of 65.62 meters in the men's javelin throw F46 final on Tuesday night, while Sundar Singh Gurjar bagged a bronze medal with season best throw of 64.96 in the same category. With this win, India achieved its first double podium finish in athletics at the Paris Paralympics. And India also achieved its second podium finish in athletics at Paris Paralympics. In the men's high jump T63 final, Sharath Kumar secured a silver medal with the best jump of 1.88 meters, setting a new Paralympic record in the T42 category. Mariyappan Thangavelu bagged a bronze with the best jump of 1.85 meters. India's President Draupadi Murmu took to social media platform to congratulate the para-athletes who brought laurels to the country. She said, and I quote, "My heartiest congratulations to Ajit Singh and Sundar Singh Gurjar for winning silver and bronze medals respectively in the men's javelin throw event at the Paris 2024 Paralympics. Their medals, after Sumit Antil's gold medal in these games, add luster to India's performance in javelin events. I wish they bring more glory to our country in times to come," unquote. India's Prime Minister Mr. Modi also congratulated the players for their outstanding achievement. He said, "A phenomenal performance by Sundar Singh Gurjar, bringing home the bronze in the men's javelin throw F46 at the Paris Paralympics 2024. His dedication and drive are outstanding. Congratulations on this achievement." The Prime Minister also congratulated Ajit Singh, saying a phenomenal achievement by Ajit Singh as he wins the silver medal in the men's javelin throw F46 at the Paralympics 2024. His commitment to sports and perseverance have made India proud. And Mr. Modi held a telephonic conversation with Paralympic Games medal winners Yogesh Kathunia, Sumit Antil, Sheetal Devi and Rakesh Kumar. He congratulated them on their victory, calling it a remarkable feat.
सर, इस बार का अनुभव बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छा रहा था और जो कमियां यहाँ पर रह गई है वो आगे कंप्लीट करनी है, उसको मतलब पूरा लेके चलूंगा और जितनी भी जो गलतियां यहाँ पर करी है वो आगे नहीं दोहराऊंगा।
बड़ी उम्र में आपको चैलेंजेज आई, लेकिन आपने उन चैलेंजेस को सचमुच में बहुत हिम्मत के साथ आपने एक बहुत बड़ा एग्जाम्पल सेट किया है जी। आपको और शीतल को बहुत बहुत बधाई, आपने अद्भुत किया जी। और शीतल की तो पूरे हिंदुस्तान में और दुनिया में बड़ी वाहवाही चल रही है। आपने देश का गौरव बढ़ाया है।
हाँ जी सर, सर बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है मुझे।
तो लोगों से मिलना हो रहा है, बात हो रही है?
हाँ जी सर, हो रही है। बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है सर, मैंने मेडल जीता अपने देश के लिए, तो बहुत खुश हूँ मैं।
गोल्ड मेडल जीता है सर और
तो आपको बधाई, जितनी बधाई दूँ उतनी कम है।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर।
तो टोक्यो के बाद पेरिस लगातार और अपने ही रिकॉर्ड तोड़ रहे हो आप तो।
सर आशीर्वाद है सर, और कंट्री का, पूरी कंट्री का, जिस तरह से देशवासी सभी सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं।
सुमित, मेरी तरफ से बहुत बहुत बधाई है।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर।
आप सबको, योगेश, सुमित, शीतल, राकेश, आप चारों को आज मैं बात कर पा रहा हूँ। कई खिलाड़ियों से भी बात नहीं कर पाया हूँ
जी जी।
लेकिन मैं कोशिश जारी रखता हूँ जहाँ पे, क्योंकि मेरी विदेश की यात्रा भी चल रही है, लेकिन वहीं से भी मैं समय निकाल करके बात करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ।
जी सर, पता लगा सर, हमें निशाद भी है सर हमारे साथ में।
बहुत शुभकामनाएं।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर।
बाकी हमारे सारे जो साथी हैं, कोची है, अन्य खिलाड़ी है, सबको मेरी तरफ से बधाई देना भैया।
बिल्कुल सर, बिल्कुल, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर आपका।
So this is how the medals tally looks like now. China leads with 53 golds, 40 silvers and 22 bronze medals. It's followed by Great Britain with 30 gold medals, 18 silvers and 16 bronzes. The United States is at third position with 20 gold medals, 22 silver and 11 bronze medals. India is ranked 19th with 3 golds, 7 silvers and 10 bronze medals. All right, now take a look at entertainment news from around the world. Hollywood director Tim Burton received the 2,788th star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on Tuesday. The quirky filmmaker with a signature aesthetic unveiled his star outside Hollywood Toys and Costumes store, one of the go-to stores for Halloween in Hollywood. Burton said on stage before the unveiling that he almost started crying when he found out about it. Also at the ceremony were two of Burton's most used stars, Winona Ryder and Michael Keaton. Hollywood actor Caleb Landry Jones's latest film Harvest premiered in Venice on Tuesday. The movie is the English language debut of Greek director Athena Rachel Tsangari. Harvest tells the story of an unnamed village that disappears over 7 hallucinatory days in a time and place left undefined. The film follows the journey of two childhood friends as they confront an invasion from the outside world, representing the trauma of modernity. And before we close, bottle caps, food packaging, utensils and scrap toys are just some of the plastic items that have been given a new lease of life in a zero-waste workshop in Taiwan. Customers gain hands-on experience in the recycling process, including scrapping plastic waste that they brought from home, melting and molding it into a pair of trendy sunglasses within 2 hours. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hour. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download it. and let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.